Okay, we are live. Maybe I should start with some kind of a intro or some kind of music or some. I don't know. It's just me. I'm sorry, folks. It's just me. It's, I'm Brent Leary, and it's really good to be back after the Labor Day weekend. I hope everybody had a nice one. I just did what I usually do on Labor Day weekends: eat a lot and watch a lot of football, and that's why I love this time of the year, folks. Be quite honest, as you can see, I'm starting to get into the professional football. My team is going to stink this year. I'll put it right out there, but I still have to represent, and I'm still living off the fumes of the Super Bowl victory. So I can take what will be a rather challenging season. But you're not here to hear me whine about my Rams. You're to hear, you're to hear, you're here because Zoho made a really huge announcement this morning that they reached a milestone that is pretty kind of unbelievable for an enterprise software vendor. But Zoho announced this morning that they crossed the 100 million user barrier. That's a lot of people using software from one company, and because it's just such a big occasion and a big announcement, I was really excited that Raju Vegesna, who is the chief evangelist for Zoho, is able to join me right now and talk a little bit about what I consider to be a huge achievement for any enterprise software company, but a company that has done it without going outside for money or to go public. Pretty incredible. So, Raju, thank you for joining me, man. This is really great.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you for having me on.
So, a hundred million
I
you.
certainly, yeah, certainly wouldn't call it an achievement per se. It's a good milestone.
Okay.
It's a good milestone.
Okay. One man's achievement is another man's milestone. We'll go with that. We'll go with the milestone. So let's talk a little bit about it. What is 100 million users? Just that number. What does that mean to you?
Responsibility. That's the first word that comes to mind. Yeah, a lot of people are now trusting you. A typical user for a single product company is different from a user for a multi-product company. When you have a Zoho user, they end up using multiple applications. So the depth of usage of a typical Zoho user is much higher. It's deeper than a typical user for a company with a couple of products. So when that means they have trusted us with their usage, with their data, with their business, and that comes with a huge amount of responsibility. And first thing, obviously, we have to be grateful on for them to trust us and over the years. And trust is something we cannot build overnight. It has to be built over decades. And thankfully, we have been earning a lot of users' trust over the years. And yeah, we are grateful to have a lot of users believing in what we do.
And the release that you guys, released, announcing the 100 million, you made a distinction like over the last 5 years, 50 million has been added. So the first several, Zoho's been around for a number of years. I think there were 1 million users in 2008, and then it went to 50 million, and then 5 years from there it went from 50 million to 100 million. And of course, part of that 5 years was the pandemic. But just talk about, why do you think there is such this increased pattern for Zoho to bring on so many new users in such a few years compared to that first 50 million?
That is the snowball effect, Brent. In fact, a couple of days back, I was reading my blog post from 2008 when we hit almost exactly 15 years back. And there I was talking about exactly this, where it took us an entire year to get to 100,000 users. And then we got to 300,000 users. And then how fast we got to 1 million users. So that effect, kind of the snowball effect kicking in, and it's pretty much the same effect kicking in now with all of the users adding. I mean, now we are adding, millions of users, definitely over a million users a month and beyond. So, but if you ask me 2 years back, it was slower than that. And if you ask me 2 years prior to that, it was slower than that. So it's just that repetitive snowball effect kicking in. There's no one spike here and there, but it's just the consistent execution. I was reading the blog post and I said a couple of things. One, momentum picking up. Two, we'll keep adding the products, we'll keep improving the products. That's not going to stop. And that was true 15 years back. That's also true now. So the depth in the products, new products, executing all of those is accumulating over a period of time. I won't attribute it to one incident here and there, like a COVID or something, but it's just that continuous momentum building over a period of time.
When you think about, that, from here to there kind of going on, um, how have you changed as you've kind of seen this all grow? And you're, of course, you're right in the middle of it. But how has it changed kind of the way that you approach customers, maybe?
I mean, frankly, the core values and principles didn't really change. There are other aspects that changed, which is, what we believed back then is coming to now. It took us a long time, but but we always believed that we can chart our own path. We always believed that if just act on our convictions, and people will do it. Now, one important thing, this milestone for us is actually it's a particularly important because this is the first bootstrapped company to ever hit 100 million users. The first ever bootstrap company to ever hit that. And that's an important one. And that is, we will get to the numbers, but we will do it on our own terms, with our own principles, valuing our own stuff. We are not going to compromise, let's say, some of the values just because we want to get to another 100 million users. Let's say it's easy to compromise privacy and get more users, or compromise another thing and get maybe another 100 million users. No, that's not us. So doing it on our terms with our values is the key aspect, and those are the things that did not change. What certainly changed is that increased customer expectations from us to stand up to those values, and increased reliance, increased trust. That gave us that kept us in the kept us on our toes to make sure that we are staying up to their expectations.
How have maybe you've seen your customers change over time?
They became more demanding, certainly, and we love that. We certainly love that. They are geographically distributed. They range from someone doing work, even using software for free, all the way to companies using tens of thousands of users. Each company with tens of thousands of users deploying it. The size of the customers increased significantly. The average number of products that each of the customers were using significantly increased, and it keeps on increasing. And the demand for certain things like certain support, experience, and ecosystem expectations, us being closer to them, these demands certainly increased. But in general, they started to see value in what we offer. Initially, they were just kicking the tires. They said, okay, here is another tech company out there. We don't know if they're going to be around. But slowly, over a period of time, they realized what they saw. They saw the products improving and started trusting us. That is the significant change we have seen. As I said earlier, the only way to earn customer trust is just executing it, putting your head down, executing it, and showing, and then they will slowly start believing in what we do, and that's what happened here.
Hmm. Well, another thing that happened is not only were you adding on new business applications, I remember there was a time when you and I would talk, and like every time we would talk, you would say, you would just matter of factly mention a new business. I was like, wait a minute, hold up, there's a new app. So because you were putting out lots of apps, but then you also you have this infrastructure. You've taken on Zoho has taken on more of the responsibility for platforms and doing your own data centers and all these things. What role is that kind of being able to do those things, to add these things? What role did that play in reaching this kind of milestone?
It comes down to the fundamental thing. What do we want to be as a company? We want to be an independent company. We want to control our destiny. That's an important aspect. How do we control our destiny? To control our destiny, we have to own all the aspects that are critical to a business. If we are, let's say, creating our applications, and then we have to own every piece of the application. And if we have to run it, we have to run it on our own cloud. And if we have to build our own distribution system, and we have to basically own the relation with the customer. All of these are important if you're a long-term company. So we said, let's say if we don't do a data center, let's say if we rely on some of the public companies, a good chunk of your revenue is going to that. And then if you don't own the distribution, a good chunk of that, your revenue is going to other companies. Sooner or later, you'll realize that you're really a value-added resellers of these other big companies out there. So we actually wanted to be an independent vendor, independent technology vendor, not a value-added reseller of the big players out there, which means we have to own all the critical pieces of the technology as well as the ecosystem for us to be around long term. If not, you're going to be acquired, you're going to be one of the many players out there that may not have a long-term thing. So which means to control our own destiny, we have to own the core pieces. And that's why we started building. Some took us a few years, some took us a few decades, but that's essential part of the business. We are going to be around and we want to be around. While it's a good milestone, ambition has always been there. I remember when we hit the 10 million in revenue, Sridhar said, "Hey, we're going to be $1 billion company." Right? He said, "That's
what was your wait a minute, when he said that to you? What was your initial reaction or response?"
Well, initially, I was surprised. Back then, I did not know Sridhar enough because that was 20 years back, right? And that was 10 million. Here he is basically going 100x from here. But it's the same way, right? When we hit a million, said, okay, we'll talk when we hit 100 million. That was the reaction. Now, when he says, yeah, we'll get to the billion, yeah, now it doesn't surprise me. We're an extremely ambitious company. We want to serve billion users, and maybe it'll take us 10 years, 20 years, however long, but we'll do it on our terms, retaining our key values, respecting customers, and enjoying the journey. There's no destination here, unlike a lot of companies. There's no exit strategy per se. And so that's why this is a journey. We are enjoying the journey. And that's why this is a milestone that almost went unrecognized. In fact, nobody was paying attention to this. It just came in because this happened in the past. When we hit the 80 million users, we were looking at the number and said, hey, we had a sense that we may be around 80 million. And we look at the numbers and said, okay, we're at 88 million or something like that. Okay, then we look back and said, okay, let's call it 80 million. The same way, we had a sense that we are somewhere around that vicinity, and we had events coming up. So we said, let's look up the number. And then it turned out that we were on time. We were looking at it and said, hey, at least this one, let's catch it on time. Instead of going past a few million users and said, okay, we hit that number. So it's not like anybody's paying attention to it. It just happened to be. That's why it's a good milestone, but all of us are enjoying the journey.
you know, part of the folks that are enjoying the journey are partners. I've been to a number of Zoho events, and partners are so into and so positive about not just Zoho, but the relationship they have with Zoho. Can you talk a little bit about how partners have played a role in this?
Yeah, partners have been an amazing part of the journey. If you look at some of the partners that have been around for the last, say, 15 plus years, imagine being in their shoes, trusting in a company that, according to them, is completely new. They may not even realize the potential, but they saw something in us and they started building a business around us and purely around us. In this case, most of these partners are exclusive partners. They are not even hedging the bets there. You got to have a certain belief in the mission and the model, and those partners have been along, along for the journey, and they've had the ride, they've had the success. It's an enormous responsibility serving the partners, and it is certainly, we are grateful to have that partner ecosystem. So the partner ecosystem, the technology partners, the well wishers, the influencers, you guys have been. I mean, we know, you, Paul, and for decades now. You saw something in the company, and the same way the partners saw something in the company. They say there's something in here. They decided to say, hey, maybe we should tell the story. Maybe we should help your customers. Maybe there is something in there. It's that blind optimism that really got that partner program started, and now the ecosystem itself is there. In some countries, majority of the customers are really served by our partners, and they do an amazing job. And it's an ongoing journey. And if you look at each of their journey, their story would be amazing.
Nice. One thing I think particularly a lot of software vendors, they really focus, of course, on the product and features and being quick to do things. Maybe part of that is dictated because the outside investment, and they're kind of forced their timelines and things like that. But that's just kind of like the traditional way of that kind of the building a software company. You guys are about as 180 degrees different from that as possible. And yet, you've gotten to this point, and you do things that are well beyond because I've seen analysts at some of the events, and when you announce or you say you do things, and this quizzical look comes on their face, like, why are they doing that? Why are they focused over here when it's all about this? And one of the things that I transnational localism, something that you guys have been doing for years now, where you go into rural areas that felt left behind, that traditional tech companies would never think about going to. But you not only go there, you go there and you set up there, and you become a part of the community, and you allow folks to stay in their community and build skills that allow them to stay in the community. And I think for some reason, a lot of traditional, startups think, well, we can't do that kind of stuff. We got to just kind of stick to the template. Why have you guys been so outside of the template? And what role did doing, the transnational localism, the setting up the universities, the building the hospitals that you're doing, what kind of role has that played in this milestone?
I think there is a template that all of these companies adhere to, which is everyone wants to be close to their customer. Whether it is companies that are public, whether it is companies that have raised money, or whether it is Zoho, right? Just that who that customer is differs. In other words, for Zoho, the real customer is the customer, the business who is using our software. So we want to be close to the customer. For a company that has raised a lot of money, the real customer is their investor. And most investors, let's say, are in the valley, and they're going to be close to their customer. and some of them want to be in New York because their customer is the finance companies out there. So they are technically close to their customer. So that's where who your customer is matters. And if you have an investor, if you're a public company, obviously you're reporting to your customer once every quarter, and that's the quarterly results, and that tells you you're reporting to your customer. But in our case, we report to our customer, and we want to be to close to the customer as possible. So being on the ground, close to the customer, being part of that ecosystem is an essential part. Then there is the second aspect, more of a philosophical aspect, which is what is the purpose of the company? There is one religion that says the purpose of the company is to maximize the shareholder value. We don't subscribe to that model. A lot of companies do, but if we subscribe to a model where, if a company is successful, it has to benefit all the constituents, customers, employees, the partners, the ecosystem, the community you're part of. You're right. And when we sell, we also have to buy from that community, and we have to be part of that positive ecosystem. So then you have to have the feet on the ground and be part of the community to improve the community. So as part of that, if the community requires, say, building a hospital or building a school, so be it. But you're being part of the community. If you're making, let's say, 100 million or a billion in profit, well, what's the point of shoving it in a bank account versus using it to improve the community that you're part of? So we subscribe to this model of, I would say, maybe the capitalism, and not necessarily the model where you maximize the returns for the shareholders. That's if we are able to do it because we don't have an investors on our back, and that is an advantage. But these are the values that we believe in. So now, as I said, we want to pave our own path, going our own unique way, and that's why this is a different model. But this is a model that resonates with the team, the Zoho team, and there will be companies that will be taking two different paths, and it's possible that all these companies will be successful. Just that this is our path, our way of doing things.
And another way of doing things, and I'm going to go back to earlier this year, you had the Zoho Day for the analysts. And one of the announcements out of the multitude, because there were a lot of announcements, there's always a lot of announcements. But one of the more interesting announcements, at least from my perspective, was around ULA, Zoho browser. And I remember when you introduced it, and I was looking around in the room, and I think there were even some folks' questions. Why are they doing a browser? Doesn't Google own like 80-90%? I mean, why? And you know what? My initial thought was, man, I feel good about myself because I know why. It's not because, well, they're trying to go against Google. They're trying to provide something that there isn't. It's a browser that's focused on privacy and giving people an option that they don't have right now. And even though it's not a direct monetization, it's part of the Zoho kind of ethos of giving customers things that they at least an option that they don't have, even if it's something that is going against the Goliath. It's doing things that, it's important. It's important to the ethos of the company. And I know privacy is one of those things that is critically important to you. Maybe you could just talk about doing things that don't necessarily make sense to certain folks, but complete sense when it comes to what you guys do for your customers.
So let me take two different paths here. There are two angles here. One, we don't subscribe to this the current market share phenomenon where we believe past performance does not indicate guarantee future performance. Right? The fact that Chrome or Google owns majority of it does not mean that they will continue to be the case. I mean, that was said when Gmail was launched. Why bother, right? But that was the case when Yahoo launched too. Why bother? Because Hotmail already owned the market and Yahoo already owned the email market. And why should Gmail do it? And there'll be several other email providers. When somebody asks us why are we in the email market, well, we will continue to innovate, and there is going to be a time. And the same applies in the browser market. Before Chrome, Microsoft dominated it, and before that, Firefox and whatnot. There is that angle to it, where on the market share, we do not subscribe to that, saying that just because one vendor dominates the current market does not mean that they will continue to dominate. Each vendor can bring in their own angle and their own differentiation. The second aspect, which is there a product, is there a certain values that we believe in, and are there any set of products that meet those values? Like, for example, we noticed that all the browsers out there are owned by companies who also have an ad-based business model, directly or indirectly. So, which means we were not comfortable. We started creating a product for our own use, just like Zoho itself started creating products for our own use. Ula is yet another product that we created to meet our own needs, and we felt it was good, and we said let's open it up to everyone else and see where it takes us. And we believe in a certain things like the privacy and in keeping user in the forefront, and we said that is a conviction. We'll invest in it, and we don't know. We cannot say this is going to be our roadmap and whatnot, but we'll figure it out as we go along. That is exactly what we said when we launched our first application in Zoho. We said we have no idea what a business model is going to be for a word processor out there, online word processor, but we'll figure our way out into it, and things will connect. As Jobs said, looking forward, you won't be able to connect the dots, but looking back, the dots will connect itself automatically, right? And that's the same thing here. We believe in some of these. And then there is a third aspect to it, which is we are a tech company. We enjoy creating things, creating products. Technology really, really excites us. So when there is a problem, we said, okay, why don't we create a solution? And if there are enough people out there that can benefit from it, then we grow. That's how we look at it. It's not always dollars and cents. It's also beliefs, convictions, and enjoying what you do. When there is no destination here, the journey itself is the key part of it, and we are enjoying the journey, which includes creating products based on our convictions.
100 million users in, and you still are enjoying it. That may say the most. Like, Zoho has been around for about 26, 27 years. And every time I attend a Zoho event, it always, it just tickles me. And I do this. Every time I go to a Zoho event, I see a Zoho employee that I don't know. First thing I'm asking them is, how long have you been here? Right? And typically the answer starts with either a 2 in front, as in 20 plus years or more, or at least, I think the last time I was like, I think it was 12 years. I'm like, 12 years? How did you get here? I mean, you see me when you're 8 years from now. It's the environment, and as you say, it's not just doing the things, it's doing the things the way that you want to do them. And it feels like that. I know people are going to ask, well, how do you get to 100 million? And quite honestly, from our conversation right now, it's like 100 million was like was not a symptom, but it's not the main goal. It's just something that came along the way from the way that you guys wanted to do things. And I think that speaks volumes for what Zoho has done here. So
yeah,
I
totally.
really,
And as I said, that's why it's a milestone. We are not, saying that this is the end goal. It's a milestone that is part of the journey. A lot of it, we cannot build the things that we are building without the team, the employees, and the commitment. What you typically see is in a tech company, there's a lot of employee churn. But without the employees believing in what we do and the broader cause, they will not commit themselves. You cannot keep the talent, keep the know-how within the company if there is a significant churn. And all of these are interconnected. You can create technology because you have the people and you can keep the people, and they enjoy what they do. They have the freedom to create all of these, and because they have the create freedom to create all the products, then they stick around, and then becomes a loop. And another day, the people, the products change in the last 15-20 years, but it's the same set of people. The user count, the company sizes changed, the industries changed during the history, but it is the same set of principles and same set of values that retain. So in some words, there are some things that really changed, but then there are some things that really didn't.
Right.
So that is a core thing you notice within the company.
Raju, I just appreciate you taking time to talk about this. I think it's a huge milestone. I'm gonna change my phrase and say milestone after talking with you right now. It has been a privilege to watch it from from my viewpoint and see all the things, and I will add, it's not only having the ability to have employees stay so long because they enjoy what they're doing and how they're doing it. That plays a role in your customers too, because I know customers like talking to people that they've talked to year over year. Once again, you mentioned that trust factor. That's part of the trust factor. It's kind of cool being able to speak to somebody that I've spoken with 12 years. I mean, 15 years. I've known you for probably 15 plus years at this point. And even from an analyst perspective, that feels good. So I know from a customer perspective, that feels great. And it also feels great from an employee perspective, knowing that they can build those kind of relationships with a customer, and the company is all for that. Because there's some places where it's almost like a Hunger Games. It's like, you can't have that relationship with that customer because I own that relationship. It's really refreshing that a company like Zoho has built such a relationship, almost sort of like a relationship machine, internally, externally, with partners, with folks like me. And so I'd just like to congratulate you guys once again, all of you, everybody, because 100 million users is quite the milestone. Say it like that.
And including well wishers and the partners and whatnot. I mean, well wishers like you and various other influencers out there who saw something in us that and we continue to engage in various ways and have these discussions. So I want to thank everyone for who have been part of it. It's just that good to see and celebrate everything together. It's a good milestone, but and we'll continue to enjoy the journey together.
Right. And I just want to say thanks for a conversation where we didn't talk about AI. That's probably the best thing the last month. All right. So on
So,
behalf of Raju, thanks to him and thanks to everybody watching. And I will see you tomorrow because PPN, we never stop with stuff apparently. So we got some other stuff going on this week. But thanks again. Have a great rest of the day.